Today should be a day when we are saying Happy Hanukkah to the Jewish community for the celebration, remembrance celebration of the Maccabean revolt that reclaimed Jerusalem and cleansed the Second Temple back in around 185 BC. Instead, the ugly face of vile, unmitigated terrorism emerges, this time in Sydney, Australia, would you believe? At least 15 people murdered in cold blood and about 30 hospitalised, and probably those statistics are going to change, sadly, with the loss of life, because these vile demons from the hordes of hell opened fire without prejudice in terms of which Jews they shot, but in full prejudice of anti-Semitism hatred at Bondi Beach in Australia. The question's got to be asked, what responsibility does the Australian government and its officials have who have failed to mitigate the pervasive, open, anti-Jewish, anti-Israel, anti-Zionist hate in Australia, allowing marches across the Sydney Harbour Bridge, gatherings at the Sydney Opera House with those chanting vile hate speech, rhetoric, the mildest of the version being Free Palestine from the river to the sea, which is a chant that requires the annihilation and genocide of the nation of Israel. And yet the Australian government, Albanese himself being the head, has failed to effectively mitigate this vile anti-Israel, anti-Semite, anti-Zionist hatred. And is it any wonder, because of that, we see such an atrocity happen in Sydney as it has? I'm sorry, folks, but if you have read the Quran through, as I have and studied it through, you cannot get away from the repetitive, pervasive, persistent promotion of hate towards Jews and Israel, and even the consent, and I would say promotion of reward for violence against Jews and Israel and Zionists. When's it going to stop? When will governments have the backbone and the kahunas to actually address these fundamental roots of a religion that is persistently, pervasively found on the end, at the beginning of such vile atrocities of cold-blooded murder globally, to the tune of hundreds of thousands of deaths? This one in Australia just adding to the statistics. Yes, there's good and evil in every nation, even in every faith, but it's hard to get away from scriptures of a holy faith that endorse, promote, and even speak of reward for such vile acts of hatred and violence against the Jews and Christians and anyone who don't believe their faith. Read it yourself. You read it yourself. I have. You can't get away from that. Anyway, prayers, hearts, love to all those affected by this horrible atrocity at Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia. I would like to see those of the Islamic faith who say they don't endorse this behaviour. I'd like to see mosques come out in vocal anger condemning this violence. I'd like to see mosques all over Australia, New Zealand and all over the world come out in righteous anger condemning such violence against these Jewish people. Don't hold your breath. Anyway, hearts, prayers and love go out to all those impacted by this all too common event that no doubt tragically is going to continue growing whilst these anti-Semites, anti-Zionists, anti-Jews and their rhetoric continue to be platformed and defended, all veiled in this false narrative of victimhood. By the way, Hanukkah was a celebration of, as I said, of Israel reclaiming Jerusalem and cleansing the Second Temple in 185 BC. That's 185 years before Christ came. Let that sink in. With all this hypocritical anti-colonizer rhetoric, and this rhetoric saying that Israel's occupying Palestine, that the Palestinians should be free from the river to the sea. Think about this. 185 years before Christ, the Jews reclaimed Jerusalem because it was their capital city. And they recleansed the temple that was established there. Sounds to me a whole lot like the Jews are already there. And history is clear that what's called Palestine today belongs to the Jews and Israel. Sounds like the accusation of them occupying their own land is absolute bumpkiss, folly. And all those who spout this anti-colonizer rhetoric, it's not the Jews who are colonizing the Palestinian land. It's the Arabs who've come down there and those who are not of Jewish origin. History is clear. Hanukkah stands as a monument to that reality, just one monument of many. Not given the fact that the archaeology and the place names of that are all Judean. For any thinking person that actually is willing to have an honest, objective look at the situation, Israel is not occupying someone else's land. In May 1948, they did what they did. About 185 BC, they reclaimed Jerusalem, the land God had given them, and the land that God had ousted them out of for a time as a punishment for their rebellion against God, but also the land that God promised to bring them back to. And that's exactly what he did, May 14th, 1948. So there's a bit of history to finish the video off with. Don't get caught up in this nonsense, this anti-Zionist, anti-Israel, anti-Jew, anti-Semite hatred that's resulting and stoking the fire for such atrocities that has occurred in Sydney. Don't be a part of that. Please don't be a part of that. That's all I've got to say about this. God bless you. Mate wa, bye for now. See ya.